the, there we go. And so Elizabeth is unable to join us today, and she has given me permission to give you photographic evidence as to why. So I'm going to pull that up here in just a second. And when I give it to you, I think you're all going to agree that she has an extremely good reason for not being here with us today. And that reason is these lovely ladies. They joined the Rico family 6 days ago. In pink is Tegan, in yellow is Evalie. So she's got a great excuse. There's a lot of good reasons that she's not here with us today, but we are so excited that these girls are here. She is really doing great. The girls are doing great. So just wanted to give our congratulations to the Rico family, to Elizabeth and her husband, Justin, as they have a chance to adjust to this awesome new season of life with these two little girls. So hope you'll join us all in giving them our congratulations. And unfortunately, you're stuck with me tonight, but I promise our panel is going to make up for that. So I'm going to take no more time in introducing our folks. Some of these guys are people who need no introduction for sure. They're known to us, but they're a variety of legislators, and they span the course from months of experience at the legislature to almost a decade of experience at the legislature. It's a bipartisan panel. And so I think we're going to learn a lot today about what Arizona's legislative session looked like and what we expected, didn't expect, successes, lack of success. It's going to be a really good discussion. And so I want to say, first of all, thank you to all of our panelists. And I will do a little introduction for all of you. And I'm just going to go by the order I see you in my screen. So there we go. First, we have Senator Lisa Otondo. Senator Otondo is from Legislative District 4. She was born and raised in Yuma, Arizona, and has represented Legislative District 4 for 10 years now. She sits on the Appropriations Committee, Transportation and Technology, and is a ranking member on the Natural Resources, Energy, and Water Committee. And truly, all it takes is one committee hearing to see that Senator Otondo is truly passionate about water issues in Arizona. She's been a leader in advocating for best management practices, sustainable growth, sensible water policy. And I think maybe one of her crowning achievements was the start of the WaterWise Arizona program. It's an informational lunch series that legislators get to come together with key stakeholders and water experts and learn about some of these really complicated issues. And I hear nothing but good things about that program. It has just been instrumental in teaching our legislators some of these really key issues for natural resource users. And so really excited to have Senator Otondo with us this evening and excited to hear from her a little bit later. We also have Senator Kerr. Sina Kerr is the senator from Legislative District 13, and she's been serving in the Arizona State Senate since January of 2018. Her district covers portions of Maricopa County, Western Maricopa County, Yuma County, and has quite a bit of urban and agricultural area as well. And that has served her well in the variety of committees that she sits on, including being the chair of Natural Resources, Energy, and Water in the Senate, the chair of the Senate Ethics Committee, a member of the Transportation and Technology Committee, the Appropriations Committee, and the Joint Legislative Budget Committee and Joint Committee on Capital Review, because you just needed a few more things to do. Previously, she served as the state chair of the Arizona Farm Bureau Women's Leadership Committee and sat on our board of directors, so she's a very familiar face to many of us. And recently, she was appointed to serve on the Cattlemen's Beef Promotion and Research Board, and I believe that's actually where you are tonight. And so, again, multitasking, keeping her busy regardless of how long the session is going on. And next, I'll introduce Morgan Abraham, and he's one of our newest members at the Capitol, and really excited to introduce him to a lot of you for the first time. He was appointed to the House of Representatives by the Pima County Board of Supervisors in December 2021. Prior to his time in political public service, Representative Abraham earned a Bachelor's of Science degree in engineering from U of A, bear down. Also has an MBA from the Eller College of Management at U of A. Again, bear down. It's a good group of people here today, folks. He served as the student body president at U of A during his senior year in college, but if that wasn't impressive enough, in 2017, Representative Abraham also joined the United States Army Reserve as an intelligence officer and received his commission from the ROTC program at U of A. But he's also no stranger to the private sector. In 2013, he started his own business, AbeCap, or Abraham Capital, and specializes in converting dilapidated buildings to housing, especially with a focus on affordable housing. So really excited to hear from him today and see kind of what it was like being a newcomer in the Arizona House of Representatives. And last but not least, we've got State Representative Tim Dunn. He was first appointed to the House of Representatives in 2018 and is a representative from Legislative District 13. similar to the same as Senator Kerr. And Representative Dunn's a lifelong resident of Yuma, and he operates a family-run business, Dunn Grain Company, and they specialize in selling grains, exporting crops like garbanzo beans and black-eyed peas. And he is also no stranger to the Farm Bureau family, served on our board of directors, and in 2017, he was named the Arizona Farm Bureau Farmer of the Year. In 1999, the Yuma County Chamber of Commerce awarded him the Agricultural Person of the Year. And he has also served on the Department of Agriculture's advisory board and was the chairman of that board in 2019. So we've got a lot of experience on this panel. We have some really great people that I have personally and professionally very much enjoyed working with. And so because of that, I'm going to stop talking and give them a chance to go through and talk about a few things for the session. What are you most proud of? What could you change if you could? What were your goals going into the session? Did you achieve them? Kind of give us that overview. And so we'll go in reverse order of how I introduced you, which means we'll start with Representative Dunn.
Are we good?
Gotcha.
Right. Thank you. And thank you, Chelsea, and thank you for the members for being online tonight. And thank you for my panel. This is a great panel, and these are supreme colleagues that I love working with. And I think we'll all agree that these people working together, we get things done. Working with Farm Bureau policy and working with Chelsea and your leadership, we're able to work on rural issues that affect Arizona agriculture and Arizona policy in general. But I think looking at my biggest goals was to get the water policy. Back October 1st, I suggested that we put $1 billion in water as one of 90. And we did that in the last vote of the session. I think it's super important that we look for water. Being a longtime person in water, as an agricultural person from Yuma, as my uncle farmed in Maricopa County, they've made votes as board of directors to take those risks and say, hey, we're going to be the first ones cut. So they were the first 513,000 acre feet. My uncle was one of those board members that did that. So board members and irrigation districts make decisions for future irrigation districts. And that's what we're all about, local decisions. And I think as long as we're and as legislators pushing those decisions down to the local, I think we're doing the best. But I think the water policy was the biggest thing that we've done. I mean, there's several things we did for agriculture. I think you look at the tax on used ag equipment was huge. I appreciate our colleagues voting on that. The reducing the tax rate on commercial personal property tax for commercial property down to 2.5% is huge. That really helps businesses. I think we had a good session tax wise. It was great. We'll talk about the ways and means. We did in the pros and cons, but I think we did a good job working that way. Things.
I think we feel the same way for sure. Representative Abraham, what about you?
Yeah, so Mr. Dunn said on October 1st, he first talked about $1 billion for water. So on October 1st, I had no idea I was going to be in the legislature. So for me, it was a little bit of a different environment. I got appointed shortly before the session started. And so I'm just someone that really likes solving problems in a bipartisan way. I think when you look back at, our country, some of the biggest bills we've ever passed and the biggest problems we've ever solved have been bipartisan. It's been input from both sides of the aisle and perspective from a broad and diverse group of people. And I came to the legislature to do that. I really wanted to work across the aisle and get things done and solve Arizona's problems. And we did that. We did that with water, a wonderful bipartisan package. It was difficult. And there were moments when I was willing to walk away from the negotiation table, but credit to Mr. Dunn for keeping me there and keeping my eye on the prize. And we did that with the budget. We passed the bipartisan budget, the first one in quite some time. No party got everything that they wanted. No individual got everything they wanted, but I think it was a beautiful thing for Arizona. And it was just a reminder to everyone watching that when we work together, we can do some really big things. So I was really, really excited about this year.
Well, quite the year to get your feet wet in. I think if you can survive this one, you can survive just about anything. Senator Kerr, I'll throw it over to you.
Thank you, Chelsea. It's so great to be here with everyone. I wish I could see everyone that is that joined on to view this, but what a great session it turned out to be. We certainly had our moments. I would say, you know, going into the session, I was very excited about the possibility of what we could do with water and putting together legislation to invest, you know, $1 billion of our taxpayer dollars into water was just so critical. And we just did months and months of work on that collaboratively. I mean, it took so many people. It was bipartisan. It was a lot of our water experts, our stakeholders, I mean, everyone that helped to bring that to success. So really grateful for that. And then I also had been working last couple of sessions on a victims' rights bill. And it was, I was bringing it back. We needed to fix some things. And so that was another priority for me going into the session. And I was just really grateful to have, we had nearly unanimous support on that bill, Kaylee's Law. We were able to make the changes we needed to give protection for victims of sex abuse and other crimes in our state. So I'm really proud of that one, proud of my constituent, Kaylee Kozat. And Representative Dunn was a big help there too, and I'm grateful for that. Also worked on the OHV issue, the off-highway vehicle issue, and went in, started working on it before session began, having stakeholder meetings. I had a bill that was going to make some changes to the OHV structure a little bit, get started on some improvements there. And then I also had a bill for the study committee. The other bill didn't make it through, but the study committee bill did make it through. So we are working now, planning for that study committee, and going into next session. I'm really anticipating that we come together with a really good solution for the OHV industry here in our state that really brings a balance for our ranchers, our farmers, for the industry, for those that enjoy being outdoors and enjoying their off-highway vehicles like we do too. And so I'm looking forward to that. And I think one thing that maybe I would change, I think that was one of your questions, just those difficult times where there's just doesn't seem to be a solution, or, you know, we're just kind of butting heads, but, you know, that's part of it. And I've learned that it's in that tension, it's in that moment when we are, you know, struggling through issues, that we really do the best work for the state of Arizona and really come together and hammer out great solutions. And but there was plenty of that this session, but overall really turned out to be successful.
Yeah, the hard times make it worth it when you get all of those kind of successes to be able to report back. I'm sure it helps at the end. Senator Otondo, what about you?
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you, Chelsea, and thank you to the Farm Bureau. You know, when I came into the legislature 10 years ago, I really came in for two reasons, and they were my parents. My mother, who was, there's a school named after my mother in Yuma, the Mary A. Otondo Elementary School. It's a public school. And my father, who has been a farmer in Arizona. I come from a farming family. We still have our farmland out in Walton Mohawk Irrigation District. My father also farmed in Buckeye. I come from a Basque family, so of course sheep herding and cattle are all in my family. And I really came here for public education and agriculture. And you can't discuss agriculture without discussing water. So for the last 10 years, these have been two real areas of focus for me. And so for it to all sort of culminate into this past session was really sweet. I'm not running again. And so to actually get a budget through that gives much needed money to public education was wonderful. And to have it be a bipartisan budget, we hadn't had a bipartisan budget since the 90s. So to actually have something focused on public education as well was huge. And then, of course, the water bill. The situation in Arizona, as we all know, is extremely serious. And so to come together and be able to work on that was really an honor and a privilege. You know, there were some really tough moments with all of that, but I'm deeply grateful for my amendment, the 200 million for conservation efforts. You know, when we discuss water, the work has really only begun. The volunteer proposals will be due in August to the feds, and we'll see what happens from there. I'm really proud of Yuma and the proposal they're making. And this is, we've got a long way to go, but the water bill was extremely important and a first step in building a financial structure so that we can actually have projects beginning to move into some form of reality. So, excuse me, I was a lucky one who got COVID. I just tested negative finally 2 days ago, so on the mend. But it was a tough session. It was a very long session. But as stated by my colleagues earlier, good things came of it. And as Representative Dunn said, there was a lot of good ag bills that came through. And another one that was really important for us was TJ Shope's bill, that 30 million to also go for upgrading irrigation, drip systems and the like. Another real important bill that I know Tim has also been really involved in promoting, stuff like that. So it was, you know, for being in the legislature for 10 years and then having it finish, voting yes on a budget and getting that water bill through, it was huge. I don't think people will ever understand. When you're in the minority, one of the questions you had asked, Chelsea, of us were, you know, what are bills that we could get through that we haven't had get through. But this year, another really important, thank you, Sina, thank you, Tim, thank you, everybody who voted for the Cesar Chavez Boulevard bill. That road in San Luis, Arizona is extremely important, not only for our Aggies, for international trade, but also for our Border Patrol, for our police officers, for the school children, for the economy. That is not only an extremely important widening of that road for South County and Yuma, but really for the state with the new port being built and opening. That is an integral road for international transportation and the transportation from our farming community down there. So it was huge. And thank you all so much for being supportive of that. We had strong, strong support from our Aggies, of course, and from our law enforcement agencies and, you know, chamber and many others. So a huge thank you. Really important for our district and for the state. So. Oh, and one last thing I also want to say.
Oh, please.
The accelerated nursing program for those of us who live in rural areas, well, actually throughout the entire state, we need more nurses, and to also have funding go into the accelerated nursing program was really, really important. So just another good piece of the budget that made it through.
Well, all four of you discussed it, I think, for a very good reason and highlighted the bipartisan budget, right? We hadn't had one since the 90s. This was a huge deal. It was a lot of really great spending and just good priorities for Arizona. My question is, what do you think made a bipartisan budget possible? I don't think anyone would disagree that we're seeing quite a bit of vitriol right now in the political sphere. We're seeing quite a bit of partisanship. What made Arizona to come together and pass something on a bipartisan basis that's so good for our state and has the potential to do so much good? And I'll throw that open to anybody. So free for all, answer whoever wants to.
I'll give
Kevin. Oh, you want to go, Senator?
No, I'll give my opinion.
I'll give the House's perspective because it's a different world over there in the Senate. So I think from the beginning, some of the Democrats that like to work across the aisle, that's not everyone, but I think we saw this strange dynamic that was boiling in both chambers, but really in the House. And that is, it was going to be really challenging with the diversity of opinions in the Republican Party for them all to get on the same page on a budget that included a big water package and even a big package in general. And so as a couple of us House Democrats kind of proactively started engaging in budget negotiations, knowing full well that they were going to try their darndest not to work with us, but we just really didn't see a budget that the governor would sign and Jake Hoffman would also be on, just to be blunt. And we kept working at it. We worked on that budget for 3 months. It would be a month on and then 2 weeks of radio silence, and then another month on and 2 weeks of radio silence. And we, as the minority party, just really, really believed in the idea that they needed us, and we weren't going to make asks that were unreasonable and that they couldn't get on, but we had a price. And so I think it's a combination of just the dynamics that were at play in the body, and then also a number of Democrats that just kept working at it.
Well,
Senator, go ahead.
Well, I think it was very similar in the Senate. There were some Republicans that didn't want to see it doesn't. In this scenario, it doesn't take but one or two to fall off. Our numbers are so close. We too in the Senate had some that didn't want to see the spending amounts, and then perhaps others that wanted to see more spending. And so when the numbers are so close in a chamber, you need each other. And there was a lot of money to spend. Let's be real. And perhaps if that amount of money weren't there, it wouldn't have happened. There was some working across between the two chambers too, with the Dems. And then some of us were also working with the Republicans as well. So it's interesting because there will always be those who will reach across the aisle. And that's on both sides of the aisle. I have very dear friends who are Republican that I've worked with at the legislature for 10 years. And we have a great amount of respect for each other. We don't always vote on the same thing, but we listen to each other. And so, and again, I believe that's why that happened. The amount of money, the close numbers, and that wasn't just with the budget. That was also with the water bill. So I just want to thank Senator Kerr and Representative Dunn. We all stayed in touch quite a bit, and I know. Sina and I had many meetings, and some of it was tough, but I'm very grateful. She can keep a very cool demeanor when my Basque temper riles up. And so thank you, Senator Kerr, for being as graceful as you were. And it is not easy to be chair of a committee and doing such an important bill as the water bill. So I just want to commend everyone who worked on that. And there were a lot of us. And so keeping it all together was really quite a feat. So, I tip my hat to my Republican colleagues in the Senate and to my colleagues in the House, both Republicans and Democrats, who worked together to to meet in the middle. You can't like everything, but we found a way to, to have a bipartisan budget and a bipartisan water bill, and that's huge.
I'll go ahead and jump in. I didn't see Representative Dunn come back on just yet, but thank you, Lisa, for your kind words. Those were some pretty robust discussions there at the end, but again, all for the greater good, worked out all for the best. And like my colleagues have mentioned, we had quite a big surplus of one-time dollars, and then a healthy budget for some ongoing spending as well. And we've done a great job with really good fiscally responsible measures. We are such a pro-taxpayer, pro-business state. We've really diversified as a state, bringing in a greater diversity of businesses that come, and create amazing jobs, good paying jobs. And it broadens that tax base. So we don't have to raise taxes. And then we end up with this incredible surplus, even coming out of the pandemic. And we rebounded, one of the top 5 states in the nation in rebounding economically. And so, we had those extra dollars then to arm wrestle over. And, that played into it as well. As was mentioned, our narrow numbers, the Republican members, we have just exactly what we need in both chambers. You have to have 31 votes in the House, you have to have 16 in the Senate, and that's exactly what we have as Republicans in either chamber. And like Senator Rotondo said, any member then can hold off on their vote. And so there was this, you could sense this willingness to join together and to hammer out a bipartisan budget. And, no budget's ever perfect. There's always things in there that, you kind of would rather not have in there. But you have to look at the positives and overall, not only, was it balanced as in, the balance sheets, but it was balanced over, the way we invested one-time dollars, and then how we, invested then for some ongoing monies as well, giving raises, much needed raises to different agency staff and law enforcement. And, there's just quite a few, wish I had my highlight book in front of me. I don't have it, but we really did some incredible work this year for the state. And I'm really grateful we were able to get that done.
Thanks, Tim.
Representative Dunn, anything to add?
Can you repeat the question, actually?
Yeah, absolutely. I was curious as to your perspective of why it was possible to get that momentous bipartisan budget done this year. What were the elements, what were the factors that made it even a possibility in the political dynamics that we had?
Well, that's a loaded question. I appreciate it. That's thank you for asking that. I think when you have a policy-wise, when you have any person has a veto power budget, and it doesn't matter what it is, they have a veto power in their budget. They start bringing in policy into the budget realm, and so we've had that the whole session. So I think you start talking those, you look at that as you're going into the negotiations. We want, me personally, I want the best budget that's going to benefit the citizens of the state, whether that's Republican budget or a bipartisan budget or a mix. But as you look at those things, sometimes people they go too far when they're negotiating. And so that was what we were looking at as you start negotiating the budget. And so it was very apparent that some of our folks were not going to negotiate. They thought they could hold to a certain extreme. And the main thing is we need to fund our government. We need to fund our people. We need to look at things going forward. And so I think at the end of the day, when you look at the budget we passed, yeah, there's some stuff that we didn't agree with that was too extreme, but some stuff that shouldn't have been done. But I think when you look at the water bill, you look at $5 million, $5 billion in paying down debt, water infrastructure, border security, school funding. These are all things that Republicans embrace. And so you started getting into a conversation about who should have voted for what. So I think at the end of the day, we vote on a good budget, and I support it. And I think the problem was like people can talk into the politics as opposed to policy, and that's where we're at.
I think that just the collegiality that you hear on this panel alone really, to me, is a good encapsulation of what we were able to see at the end of that session, right? You're folks that are on different sides of the aisle, obviously, but we're able to come together and have these conversations and get this done. And I agree with all of your analysis, but we'll just add one more thing, which is that it's also people like you who are willing to have these conversations and are generally very good people, and that I really enjoy working with to be able to make those kinds of decisions and those kinds of votes. I also want to remind our attendees that are on right now, I'm asking all the questions at the moment, but we are going to have time at the end of the panel for you to ask your questions. So use the Q&A function here on Zoom. You can type your question into the box. I see we've already got a couple of them, so I do see them. Don't worry, we're going to get to them and have the time to actually get you guys to ask what you want to hear of our elected officials who are on with us tonight. And if you have joined us in the middle, thanks again for being with us on this webinar Wednesday. We have a bipartisan, multifaceted panel of legislators here to talk about the 2022 session and the successes, the highs, the lows, and some of their insights as our elected officials. This next question I'm going to ask actually specifically of you, Senator Kerr. And I think that you're mentioning Kaylee's Law really spurred this for me and showed me so many of you talked about things that you did that were directly responsive to something your constituents brought to you. And as someone who works in grassroots, that is absolute music to my ears, right? That's exactly what I want to be able to empower our Farm Bureau members to do is feel comfortable and feel like they have the skills to bring those kinds of issues to their elected officials. So from your perspective as a senator, what can grassroots members do to communicate those needs to you effectively? What's the best way for you to hear from your constituents in a way that leads from conversation with a constituent all the way to a signed bill?
Yes, well, thank you for that. I've just been really blessed with the opportunity to respond to constituent requests. This year, we also got through the epilepsy training in our schools, and that came from a constituent who had a very public epileptic seizure during a ball game at the Diamondbacks game, and it went, it was all over TV. And so he wanted to make a difference and introduce, and so that took several sessions to get that through. Kaylee Kozak came to me. It was right before with COVID, so I can't even remember. I think that was 2020, and came to me with her specific issue, and so it's, for me, there's no greater responsibility than to respond to my constituents. And when they reach out and ask for a meeting, and they have a personal experience and they realize that statute needs to be changed, it is such a blessing to get to work on those. And I was particularly concerned about diving into the victims' rights statutes. I had no experience there. I said, give me cows and crops and water all day long, but I have no idea what I'm doing with victims' rights bills. But I have to say, our staff, in both chambers are just incredible. And so I involved the staff right away. They helped guide me, who to connect with, how do we even start, where in statute can we make a change? And so it is just so powerful for our constituents, for the people to know that we really do have a government that's by, of, and for the people, and to reach out to your members, to know them. You know, Farm Bureau, I don't know that any organization does it better than Farm Bureau in training the grassroots. And I mean that sincerely, because that's what propelled me to be, you know, in this position today, was that engagement, diving into policy, you know, diving into the statutes, learning, you know, what a bill is going to do. Is it going to help? Is it going to hurt? And how do you advocate for that? So knowing your member, getting to know them, email, phone calls, let staff know that you're a constituent, put it in the subject line of your email that you're a constituent, you'd like a meeting, put your address, so that, you know, that can be verified. And I think for all of us, our constituent emails and phone calls take high priority over everything else. And so it's just been just the highlight for me in serving, is being able to affect change and do something so incredible to help a situation, and not only help their situation, but to make life better for all of Arizona. So really, really grateful. So I encourage everyone to, you know, to really know your members and stay engaged.
I didn't script her answer, for the record, but if I had, that's exactly what I would have had her say. So just throwing that out there. Representative Abraham, you know, you, of course, are new to the legislature. Like you said, this was in October, you didn't even know you were going to be a member of the Arizona Legislature. So I know one of the things that really overwhelmed me starting as a lobbyist was just the sheer number of bills that are introduced when you start getting into the 14, 15, 16, 1700 number. And as I watched you as a legislator, I think one of the things I really respected was your decision-making process. And so I wanted to ask you specifically, when you were undecided on a bill or an issue, or it was something that you weren't familiar with, what was the best way for you to sort of form your opinion on that bill? What kind of information did you look to? Who did you look to for information? And how can that be helpful to my members as I'm telling them, you know, just what Senator Kerr said, go meet your members. Tell me what's helpful for you to hear as an elected official.
Yeah, well, so having no prior elected capacity, I really drew on my experience from the private sector. And I have two main experiences that I kind of drew on. One, I'm the CEO of my company. And so I run a company of about 50 people. And in that space, I certainly am not the smartest human being there. That's the job of a CEO, is to hire people who are much smarter than them. And from that role, I really learned to value people's perspectives and trust people that know what they're talking about. And I think I've honed that skill to be able to tell if people actually know what they're talking about. The same in the Army. I'm in the Army. I'm a company commander for a military intelligence company. My soldiers are brilliant. I mean, these are some of the smartest military intelligence soldiers you ever saw. And again, I am not. And so I am good at listening to them and trying to take different perspectives and putting that together to solve the jigsaw puzzle. And so I brought both of those to the legislature. I know what I'm good at. I'm typically good at like finance and numbers. I know what I'm not good at, and that's a lot of other things. And so I just really leaned on key stakeholders. The Farm Bureau was one of them, especially at my time on NRU, and started building trusting relationships with people who I judged to be experts. And then I just try to weigh opinions and options and come up with what I thought was the best way to govern.
I think we could definitely see kind of the impacts of that as we went through and worked with you on NRU and some of the other things. And so very much appreciated, and always one of the reasons we really appreciate having legislators with diverse backgrounds and that kind of experience. And Senator Otondo, you are definitely one of those legislators. So you talked a little bit about your background earlier, and you also mentioned that you're not running for office again. So those 10 years that you spent will be the last 10 years that you spent, and we are certainly going to miss you. And you are a person who I know many of us, myself included, really look up to as a leader and as just a great Arizonan and someone who had the best interests of our state in mind. So with that, you know, I'm really looking to you as someone who's kind of a mentor and someone who's really shaped a lot of the leadership that we see today. who are the people you looked to for guidance as a legislator, as a person, the kind of person that you are to a lot of us? Who were those people to you?
Well, that's really interesting. I just think it's my family. My parents were huge role models for me. But also, early on in my legislative career, it was the second year, I took the agribusiness water management certificate program. Year long, you dedicate, a weekend a month. And that really just kicked the door open for networking. A lot of this job is about networking and really information gathering. So that was huge. I mean, Herb Gunther, my family, I've known her all my life. And then Bill Plummer and, Chris Udall were always, they put together the agribiz water certificate program at ASU. So there was water law. There were people from all of the universities. So that was huge. So just really opening the door. And as he's very humble, Abraham's very humble. He walked in and did a heck of a job. It's a steep learning curve, and he was fantastic. But, you can't know everything at the legislature. So you have to surround yourself with people who do. And that can be staff. That can be making phone calls back home to your district. Wade Noble, another huge mentor of mine. Many people back home in the farming community, and in the city and in different parts of the government. And so I think it's surrounding yourself. And I know lobbyists get a bad name, but I have met a lot of very wonderful people who work in lobbying. Chelsea, gosh, we've been through so many meetings together with all the governor's meetings, the drought contingency plan, all the subcommittees. But you meet so many people, you bring them in, and lobbyists, of course, they're representing their client, but that bill will have two sides. And so you've just got to talk to both sides and then use your staff and then try to read between the lines in the bill, because there may be a ramification that you're not even thinking about. So it's like Abraham said, kind of surrounding yourself with people who are smarter than you are. But there are so many experts out there and so many issues at the legislature that you just can't know everything. You can't. So.
Well, again, I did not script her answer about how lobbyists are good people, but I appreciate it nevertheless. Representative Dunn, I think I definitely look to you as someone who I feel like is always in the know. You're my go-to source of information on so many things, on relationships, on political dynamics, on bills, everything. So I'm going to ask you, and then I'll kind of give this to everybody as well. It seems like every session there's one like capital B big thing that happens. Or that, is the issue. What's going to be that next year? Give me your best prediction. What's going to take up the bulk of, or, what's going to take up an inordinate amount of time of the legislature's attention?
Chelsea, that's a great question. I do think that every year we start off the session with the governor and the legislature's priorities and the biggest thing we have to do, and it does change over time. And water this year was the big thing. It started off with a big hairy idea. I started back in October, I started back in November, $1 billion, and like people all year long was like, oh, it's too big a deal. But at the end of the day, water will continue to be the biggest thing that confronts Arizona. So get past what we did this year. Look at next year. We don't know what the money is going to be available. My personal opinion is the big deal next year is to continue making things affordable for cutting back inflation and put as much money into water as we can. We're not sure what that number is going to be. We'll know more in October. I can't say a number right now because we're not sure what the number is going to be, but we don't know if it's going to be $1 billion of surplus or $2 billion. So I cannot say that today, but I think Arizona should continually put at least 50% of the reserves in water, new water, and preserving our future.
Anybody on the panel have a different perspective than that, or anything to add to that question?
I would just, concur with what Representative Dunn said too. And so often, you go in, you think one thing's going to be the big bill and that big issue, and then some type of current event takes precedence, and you need to deal with that, and that becomes the big bill. And so I really don't know what it's going to be, honestly. I'm working on several already going in, but I don't think they'll by any means be the big thing. So it'll time will tell, but we'll know soon enough. That's for sure.
I won't be there, but in my humble opinion, I think there is one extremely important issue that the state of Arizona is facing, and that's water. We're going to have our folks in Washington, our senators and our congressmen lobbying for more dollars, federal dollars, so that those farmers who do choose to fallow, or if there will be a fallowing program, there will be monies available. We've got a lot more work to do when it comes to water. We've allocated money, but more money will be needed. There is no doubt about that. We've recently read that Ducey, the governor, will be pushing for this desal plant. $1 billion isn't enough. There are important discussions that need to occur with Metropolitan, the Los Angeles Water District, on whether we can have an agreement where we can use California water and perhaps assist them financially with a recycling program. We've got so much more to do, and more money needs to go into best land management practices, because the fires that are occurring in Arizona are, horrendous and affecting all of the mountain areas, the towns. We're seeing Flagstaff flooding, Globe flooding. Our state needs us, and we need the feds to be doing better management of federal lands, and we need to be doing better management of our state lands, and we need to protect the watersheds. So for me, even though I won't be there, the number one issue is water infrastructure, best land management practices, preservation of our watersheds, and protection of private property concerning water and the fires that are happening. So it all comes back to natural resources and water. Chelsea, you said if there were one committee, actually every committee I'm on, I'm with CINA. So JLBC, appropriations, transportation, and also natural resources and water. But if there were one committee that I would be on, if I had to pick one, it would be natural resources, energy, and water, because they're, without water, there's nothing. It is our life, and agriculture is, you're speaking to someone from Human, a farmer's daughter. So we need to ensure that we protect our food sources. The minute we have to start outsourcing for food, we're going to be in very similar situations that we find many underdeveloped countries in. And we cannot be reliant on other countries for our food sources. So whether that means also adjusting some of our crops, whatever it means, we have to ensure that we protect our food sources and our water. So,
This fellow farmer's daughter
I guess-
could not agree more. Go ahead, Representative Abraham.
So as the new guy that has the least idea of what is going on at this place, I'll give my perspective. And it's a little bit different. And I don't want to get too political, but the biggest thing I think we're going to be facing next year, based on my reading of the tea leaves, is just governing in general. We're going to have a new governor. I don't know who it's going to be, but there's a reasonable chance that that new governor will have no government experience. We're going to have both political parties that appear to be moving more towards the extremes with the new members that are coming through. I mean, primaries are going to happen next Tuesday, and I think it's a reasonable assessment to say that both sides of the aisle are going to get more extreme. I might not even be back next year. I might lose in my primary on Tuesday. And so it's going to be really challenging, even no matter what the final makeup of the legislature is to just govern with these kind of polarizing forces that are coming. And I think that's more of a reason why the four people on this call and plenty of others, why they're supporting people like this is so important, because I'm confused at how we're going to do big things if our parties keep pulling us apart. So that's what I'm thinking about.
I think it's really insightful, and definitely goes to the points that I've been hammering home to my members until I'm sure they're sick of it, of just how important these primaries are going to be, just how monumental and how different the legislature is going to look after August 2nd and definitely after November, and the importance that we're going to have of being able to have the same relationships we've got with our legislators now, like the four of you on this panel. So with that, I'm going to let some of our members ask a couple of questions. And the first one is for you, Senator Kerr, from Ben Mingus. He and his wife are ranchers in Graham County. And Ben has asked, what is your plan to take on OHV issues next year? As a rancher, he knows those pretty intimately. So he wants to hear some of your perspective on that.
Yes, thank you so much for that question, Ben, and wish I could see you. So, this is another issue that came from a constituent. I was loosely familiar with it, dealt with some of it, on our farm ground in a different way, right there in Buckeye. But diving into this issue has been an incredible journey, so many layers to it. And it's been both fascinating and challenging. And so, like I said, the study committee, that bill did go through and was signed. We can't convene until after the general effective date, which is September 24th, I believe. And so we're planning for an early to mid-October first convening of that study committee. It has a broad array of representation on that committee, not only legislative members, but we have farmers, ranchers, outdoorsman group, we have law enforcement, we have the OHV industry, dealers, you name it. I wanted to get everyone at the table so that we could just really do everything we could to come up with a good solution that everyone partakes in. And I think just from the few stakeholder meetings that I've had, and then speaking with some industry folks, education is key. And so really, doing a lot more with education, and Game and Fish has already started that. They've come out with some great videos, great materials. We're already seeing some progress there. Very excited about that. Of course, there's enforcement. We will be looking in all to that as well. And then we have some designated areas around the state, looking at where else can we have some designated areas for and when I'm talking about these OHV, these off-highway vehicles, I'm not talking about, the side-by-sides that we use on our farms and ranches. I'm talking about these, the other brands that are, can go 60, 80 miles an hour. They're just different. And the folks that enjoy those, some of my family, I have had fun in those as well. The what they want out of that is different than, you know, the others that use maybe the side-by-sides, like I talked about, that do more maybe hunting and sightseeing and things like that. You know, and the ones that use these other faster, heavier vehicles, they are, you know, wanting a different experience. They're more thrill seeking. So we need to consider, you know, areas, opening up more areas where they can have that experience and not tear up our lands, not impede on our ranchers, you know, doing their work, growing our food, and understanding that dynamic, that when you go on, you know, state land and the public has access to that, you're stepping onto somebody's business. And I say all the time, you know, our farm fields, that's our office. We don't have four walls and a roof, but you wouldn't treat somebody's, you know, office building that same way, or, you know, go through and be disrespectful to somebody's business. And so I think we're going to come away with that study committee then with a lot of great ideas. And I think that will spur some really good, helpful legislation. When the OHV legislation statutes first came into being, we were just addressing the side-by-sides, those smaller machines. Well, things have really changed. And so I anticipate some really good common sense solutions that will help everyone.
Well, thank you for that, Senator. And we have another question that's not a question, but it's from Julie Murphy. She is our Communications and Outreach Director at the Arizona Farm Bureau. And she just wanted to say thank you to each of you for all the hard work that you did in a bipartisan way. It's historic, and you certainly deserve cheers for this session. Julie, could not agree more. That's, I think, a pretty good place to end our Q&A part, at least, because we're running up on time. So I'm going to take the liberty and end the session with a quick lightning round, because I think they're fun. So I'm going to say first lightning round, and I'll call on you to answer. Describe this past session in one word. Senator Kerr, one word for this session.
Intense.
Representative Dunn.
Excruciating.
Not too far off. Representative Abraham.
Chaos.
And Senator Rotondo.
Long.
All right, now let's see if there's a little more optimism in the next question, which is describe the next session in one word. And I'll start with Representative Dunn.
Optimism.
Okay. Representative Abraham.
I'm gonna go chaos again.
Senator Kerr.
Oh gosh, just one word. You know, someone told me a long time ago that if you've seen one session, you've seen one session. And so I'm just going to say unexpected. I really don't know.
And Senator Rotondo, I'll let you close it out.
I was thinking along the same lines as Senator Kerr. It's an unknown.
Well, in the midst of that unknown, which, you know, is something that farmers and ranchers know well, we are extremely grateful for elected officials like you all who are open to your constituents, who prioritize the issues that are important to farms and ranches across the state. So from the bottom of my heart and on behalf of all of our members, thank you, thank you, thank you for the time that you dedicate to this, for the work that you put in. We're looking forward to working with you in whatever capacity next year, whether that's in the legislature or out of it, as with you, Senator Rotondo. But thank you. Thanks for your time tonight. Yep. And I hope that you will all not hesitate to reach out to us if there's anything you need. And for our members on the line, thanks for your time as well. A recording of this will be available for you to share with your friends and family as you see fit. And after that, that's all we've got. So have a great night. Be safe, and we'll see you all later.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was great. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Everyone.